Welcome to Tipsy History. I'm Sam Busse, and today we'll be talking about Wisconsin historical events while drinking.
All right, so I'm Jacie, and I'm going to be talking about the Balistrieri family, who, specifically Frank Balistrieri, who from 1961 to 1993 was the mob boss of Milwaukee.
So let's start with an interesting story that many of you don't know about. It's actually how United States.
So let's start from the beginning. Frank Lloyd Wright was born in June 8th, 1867. Where on he died. It says
Say, you do it, say where, I don't care.
Where? I don't give a damn.
2.9%. I explain it. According to the census data, only 2.9% of Wisconsin have French ancestry. Pardon me, I'm about to black out.
Starting off, he was born in, this is going to clink around, isn't it?
Is it? Keep going. Chug that. Okay, that's being saved.
So basically, the Wisconsin territory was ceded by France to Great Britain in the middle of the Treaty of Paris in, I think, 1963.
Frederick Miller ended up
I'm trying to leave a comment. There we go. Got it. Okay.
This is the story of Frederick J. Miller and the Plank Town.
All right. So, yeah, Frank grew up already in the entirety, basically, of the mob in Milwaukee. His brother was involved, his sons ended up getting involved, his in-laws, specifically his wife's father, who was John Llyod, was the mob boss before him.
Cruel.
Hydrochloric.
Hydrochloric.
Think about like chlorine, hydrochloric.
Yeah,
Okay.
hydrochlor.
So call.
Let me just show you.
There is not many French speakers living in Wisconsin. That's a lie, though.
Miller's first brewery was the Royal Hohenzollern. I gotta redo that.
And basically, when you're getting into the mob, there's the boss, then there's the underboss, then there's the lieutenants, who are also called caps or capos. And then below that, there are the soldiers. But then there's also the counselor. I'm gonna biff the. I think it's called a consigliere.
He had a bit of a signature. He would frame the landscape of the surrounding area so it would look like a real-time portrait. He wanted to preserve, which this is something I heard through my 4th grade teacher.
So now is where we come to the topic, like creating Wisconsin territory. Ooh, like creation speaking, like it's like when your mom and your dad like love each other so much. Like
Miller finally settled down in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, And after a few years, he found that the Best brothers, who eventually came to be the owners of Pabst, he found that they had gone bankrupt, and he was able to lease the Plank-Road Brewery for 1 year before he eventually bought it from the owner.
Any of y'all know how to read Italian? Consigliere.
Over time, as more English speakers settled into the area, actually, the French spelling was changed to more like English W, which makes it better, you know, like Wisconsin, what's that, bro? Like,
So, in 1903, Frank Lloyd Wright was designing a house for Eldwin Chaney, a neighbor in Oak Park of Frank's. Frank became enamored with Chaney's wife, Momama Bortrick Chaney. Funny name. Someone say it again. Momama Bortrick Chaney. And Mama was a modern woman with sorry, I read it wrong.
Frederick J. Miller purchased the Plank-Road Brewery in the year 1855. The Plank Road was their time's equivalent of a large highway. It was constructed of basically logs in a row that formed a path.
And then there's the consigliere, who works as like a counselor between the boss and then the underboss, so that the lower level people don't have to talk directly to the higher up people and vice versa. And there's also earners, and they brought in the money on the lower end, and then there were also the associates who weren't really in the mafia but wanted to be.
in the beginning, like there were more like, I think it was 12 tribes, which now there's only 4 that we know about. I wonder why. And basically those are weird names that I won't be able to remember right now.
So their relationship was pretty spicy and taboo. So during this time, Edwin Chaney granted Momama a divorce. After Wright returned to the United States in October 1910, he pursued his mother to buy a land for him in Spring Green, Wisconsin. The land bought on April 10, 1911, was adjacent to land held by his mother's family, the Llyod. Wright began to build himself a new home, which he called the Taliesin, by May 1911.
How much did he pay? At the time, I believe he paid around $2,000 for a year lease. No, for the year lease, he paid around $1,200, and he ended up buying it the next year for around $2,500. I don't know the exchange to today.
For the most part, and this ended up getting loosened up on, but if you wanted to be in the mafia, you had to kill someone in a way that like helped out the mafia. Like you couldn't just go killing some random person. You had to kill someone that the mafia were like, they kind of gotta go.
The good thing is that actually French play an important part of economy, like in the economy role in the 17th, 18th century of Wisconsin.
While living there, and Moama will visit frequently, the people of Spring Green knew what was going on and knew that this home was made for kind of a taboo relationship. It was made for his mistress, not his wife. So they were not supportive of this place being here.
A, B, C, D.
The Best Brothers already had most of the equipment needed to brew beer at the time, and they had these caves that they used to cool and refrigerate the beverages during a time when there was no refrigeration.
We don't know if Frank actually killed anyone, and in his entire time as a mob boss, at least to the knowledge I could find out, he was never named as a suspect to a single murder. Later on, though, he would be accused of ordering them, but again, not a suspect.
The presence of European settlers drastically altered the way of life here in Wisconsin. Like the American Indian population first saw white settlers with the arrival of French and English fur traders, actually.
They would write to their politician hoping for the land to be taken out, for Frank Lloyd's place to be taken down, and that his relationship was against God, and all this bunch of.
Another good aspect of this purchase was the location, because they were close enough to the downtown Milwaukee area, or the city of Milwaukee at the time, that they could bring the beverages in, ship them in very quickly, as well as they were close enough to the farm fields and stuff to get raw resources, such as the barley, the wheat, and the ice needed to cool it at the time from the lake.
Frank did get pretty heavily involved in Las Vegas, specifically with skimming casinos. But I mean, in general, in Milwaukee, the mob, if you can think of any way that they could make money in a weird way, they absolutely did.
White settlers rush onto land left vacant by India's removals, actually. Lead miners from southern states, and if you know what I'm talking about creation of Wisconsin, so get over it.
So William Weston helped to put out the fire almost completely, which completely consumed the residential wing of the house. Carlton, the landscaper, who started the fire and butchered all those people, swallowed hydraulic, chrolic.
After a while, Frederick Miller realized that he couldn't only sell to locals in the Milwaukee area if he wanted to be a successful businessman and create a profitable business.
Milwaukee was kind of nice for the mob in that there wasn't a lot of rivalry, but that did mean that their biggest issue was the police and then eventually the FBI. Frank ended up wanting to take over his father-in-law's position as the boss of the Milwaukee mob. You can do that quick, I don't mind. Do what you gotta do. Yeah, okay, cool. So, yeah, do it.
Hold on. Everybody
Just get a plate. Just get a plate out. So you don't hear the bag crunching. Oh, you dropped one.
It's okay, I'll throw it away.
England were joined in the 1830s by farmers and developers from New York and New England. Immigrants from Britain, Norway, and Switzerland founded colonies. Like who else will create a state, other than farmers and maybe miners, yeah, mostly farmers. Like what you got in Wisconsin, like milk, cheese. Cheers. They got beer. They do.
Carlton, who started the fire, swallowed hydrochloric acid immediately following the attack in an attempt to kill himself. But he failed. He was captured and nearly lynched on the spot, but he was taken to Dodgeville jail, and he died of starvation 7 weeks after the attack, despite medical attention.
So he started to send his beverages to other northeastern cities like Milwaukee and Boston.
Wait, you said it from Milwaukee to Milwaukee?
from Milwaukee to Chicago.
In 1961, Tony Accardo, who was the Chicago outfit boss, supposedly tried to get a hit out on Frank because Frank sanctioned the murder of a nightclub operator who was Izzy Pogrop?
Wisconsin population in maybe 1820s, going back, like was estimated by like 1,440 or maybe more. And by 1836, maybe, it was past like 10,000, like making Wisconsin eligible for its own territorial government. So you see a lot of creation right there, like from 1,144 like to 10,000.
Frank Lloyd Wright, distraught and just decimated by the death of his mistress, he fashioned a coffin for her and put her to rest in it, which probably destroyed his first marriage. I mean, besides the fact that he had a mistress, he went on and made a coffin for her.
Frederick Miller kept growing and growing his company up until the point of the Prohibition. He's, at the time, the main product that he sold was the still sold beverage Miller High Life, we all know as the champagne of beers. Up until the point of the Prohibition, where he started selling malt syrups, sodas, and near beer, which I believe near beer is beer below the mark of 3.2% alcohol per volume, by volume.
Izzy Pogrop was killed or found on January 9th of 1960. He was found bound and blindfolded in a ditch out in Mequon, and I think it was off of Highway 61, and he had 9 bullets in him too.
But the first territorial capital in the Llyod region, their representatives chose Madison as the site of the future capital. And many people actually were proud of that name, that they actually named their daughters Madison for some reason.
Come on, like, if your significant other was doing that for somebody else, that marriage wouldn't last.
Through the Second World War, High Life was the only product that the Miller Brewing Company sold, and it soared in popularity across the whole nation and was a huge hit across, it was a family known name across the United States.
Basically, the whole like organized crime syndicate of North America, what did I have about that? I don't know. I think I just wanted to say syndicate.
The population exploded basically into more than 10,000. It went to like 155,000 by 1846. You see, like, they went crazy in those years though. Like, they weren't stop at all. So about the like 60,000 citizens, like they're required by law or a territory to become a state actually. And that's how you get Wisconsin and no Wisconsin, which is a lot better, guys. Like, you're welcome, America.
Eventually, he rebuilt his home, which was again destroyed by natural disasters. So the structure that is up today is the 3rd attempt. Hopefully it's still around and hasn't been renovated. I don't know, I haven't done the research on that. But that is the insane history of Frank Lloyd Wright and his taboo love cottage.
Frederick Miller ended up buying a saloon, a beer hall, and a beer garden. The beer garden was located above the brewing valley. On the bluffs above it, you can still actually go to the site and see where the beer gardens were.
Frank had his base of operations in the Shorecrest Hotel, which is just down the road from where we are filming. I used to live there. It's a lovely place. And it was getting raided by the FBI.
Where did you stay?
The Shorecrest Hotel. Yeah.
When Frederick Miller died in 1888, his son Ernest took over the business, keeping the business in the hands of the Miller family for 2 more generations.
So this man went from being the absolute, just being a powerhouse in Milwaukee, especially within organized crime, to going to prison and then coming back and being completely shunned by everyone you love. So he went from having everything to having absolutely nothing on his deathbed. And he ended up dying on February 7th of 1993. Apparently, he hid part of his fortune too, and that has never been found.
I can't.
Yeah, that was a really gross swallow.
What a nice show.